Okay, hi, this is JJ from Paranormal Talks, paranormaltalks.com. We're back with the fourth and last, allegedly, video from Mr. Greg Caton on the Gospel of 2012 from his Hayahuasca vision quest, showing him the future of our world. And as promised, he'll be speaking to the last chapter of his book, the old world and the new world, what we're going into. So, Mr. Greg Caton, go ahead, take it away. Tell us more.
Well, I already kind of described the older, to put things in perspective, this Earth is in decrescence. It's going to continue to have ecological collapse. It's going to, there's not going to be, and I know that some people in Christian eschatology think this. With all due respect, I'm saying it doesn't comport with what I was told and what I've experienced. That Jesus is going to come and he's going to cure everyone's ills, and the good go to heaven and the bad go to hell. What I was shown, one could say that is an oversimplification.
Oh.
It's not the arrival of any being. It's the arrival of the Christ consciousness, not somebody coming down from the sky. Okay. If you could think of Christ consciousness as divine awareness or divine consciousness. Okay. That's more in line with what I was told and what I have experienced. Okay.
And which, by the way,
this place goes to hell. It gets worse.
Is by the way, that is very reminiscent exactly from the Edgar Cayce readings from the 1920s and 30s.
Why don't you take a minute telling me about that? I'm a little bit hazy on that. I mean, I've read a lot of Edgar Cayce's material.
Yeah, he's talked about that too. Cayce has always said in his reading, Edgar Cayce, who from the Association of Research and Enlightenment, Virginia Beach, houses all of his dictated readings, and he spoke many times about the Christ consciousness returning to each one of us individually. It's not
Did he
Jesus.
talk about what happens to this earth?
He does allude to a bit of that, but I don't want to get into that.
Well, I will. It gets really,
yes.
It gets,
and that's
this place,
and that's what we want to hear. Okay, I just wanted to mention that Edgar
taught in
Cayce
school.
has also said very similar. Okay, go.
We're taught in school to study archaeology that we had this experience about 255 million years ago called Permian Triassic, this disaster that hit the earth, and it took 10 million years for life to return. This is something that from those that look at the archaeological data is accepted as a fact, whether you're in the whether you're in the uniformitarian camp or you're in the catastrophist camp. This is accepted as something that actually happened. And what I'm here to tell you, where they're taking this planet, is something we haven't seen since the Permian Triassic disaster. Because what's going to happen is these people, they're not going anywhere. They thought they could create a prison planet. The prison planet they created will end up being their own prison. They will end up here. They'll have to wait millions and untold eons to get back to the point where this planet will once again be able to support hominoid life. And they'll go back and reincarnate until they learn the lessons that they're intended to learn. Okay? Which will seem at a soul level as an eternal hell. It'll be experienced because let's face it. If you and I could live for another 10 million years and we lived in a horrible, wouldn't that seem like eternity to a human soul? Doesn't 10 million years seem like an eternity?
Yes.
Yeah. So this place, you have no idea how hellish it gets. It's getting more hellish by the day now as we see ecosystem collapse all over the globe, and it's going to continue that way. But this place is where those who have created this, again, to quote Dolores Cannon, they will live with what they have created. What I'm going to read from now is going to be an excerpt.
Good.
It was so important to me now. I'm going to read it and then I'm going to make commentary as I'm reading it.
Good.
Because I think it's the most profound thing that if you were to ask me, what's the most profound thing you ever told out of the hundreds and hundreds of entheogenic journeys that you've done? What's the most profound thing you were ever told? And that's what I'm about to read to you. It's chapter 10 from the Gospel of 2012, but it also is repeated, the most relevant parts repeated in the final chapter of the joys of psychopathocracy. Okay, so because I feel it's so important. So here we go.
Okay.
The conclusion. I have chosen to entitle the closing chapter of the message section of this book, Conclusion, fully admitting that the revelations are a work in progress. As we approach the middle of May, of course, keep in mind this is May 2012, each journey breaks through a new threshold in my understanding of the unfoldment, or to use the focusing telescope metaphor, a new adjustment towards clarity in what the gospel of 2012 really means. I do not doubt that this image will only attain to a sharp, crystal clear resolution when we have made it to the end of 2012. Well, that's an errancy on my part, simply because it felt so close. Not something that I was told, that I simply interpreted to interpret with human eyes.
Sure.
But this, what I'm reading is now more real now than it was when I wrote it. But not because, without the need and the obsession, if you will, with it, trying to assign a date to something that at this point is undateable. At each stage of the process between conducting vision quests, transcribing recordings, and adding new chapters, I have had to confront the limits of my own frailty, prejudices, because we all have them, and skepticism. The overpowering influence of my relativistic mind is as strong as anyone's. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine I would be involved in such work. It is a radical departure from anything else I've ever done in my life. And as I've stated repeatedly throughout the text, it will remain a mystery until I have fully integrated everything I have experienced, why I would have been chosen for such a project. The whole thing, and you skip this in the book, I just feel I'm this messenger, I'm this person who, chosen, who really didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to do this. I really didn't. But it was like something I had to do. Nevertheless, now that you have some inkling of the immense possibilities that await us as we approach the passage, really we've been referring to the passage as the event, the passage. However this event manifests for each of us, the most important question is, what will you do about it? If you are like me, there are serious questions that remain, and if there is anything in the text which elicits, this is unbelievable, you are in good company. However, if I have managed to accomplish anything at all with you, I certainly hope it is that the kindling of a desire to on your part, to own your own truth. We talked about this earlier when we were talking about, even in part one, about the very fundamentals of knowledge. Own your own truth. Don't take the word of anybody. Own your own truth. You did your own research. You had your own internal experiences. Own the things that you boldly call knowledge. Don't just have someone else whisper something, or have a college professor tell you something. Oh, I know something. You don't know anything. You know what somebody told you. That's all you know. I've been repeatedly told, as we approach the singularity, we will have the opportunity to communicate with the divine through the opening in the heart. We talked about that earlier. So that we can obtain our own direct connection to reality. The whole book is about have a direct connection to the divine. No priests, no rabbis, no nothing. Each of us have a direct connection to the being that created us. You don't need to use intermediaries. Now is the time of dispensing and eliminating the intermediaries and realizing that each one of us has within us the divine spark, and each one of us should be able to communicate directly with the divine. We just have to become better listeners. In this sense, we are all chosen. The divine wants all of us to take our own vision quest seriously, no matter what material aids from nature you use or don't use. In your effort to resolve this yearning we have all had and felt for so long. And my belief is that in moments unexpected, you will have, as I have, these unanticipated clues that will point you in the right direction. The more energy you put into the search, the more you will attract the answers that will bring you home. This very morning before breakfast, this is kind of where I get into the actual, where I'm actually having the actual experience itself of what is the new earth. This very morning before breakfast, I was standing on my porch, communicating with the clouds, a practice I had seen my mother do so many times. Suddenly, I was overcome with sensations that I realized I'd never experienced before. At first, I thought I was feeling a frozen moment, that deep silence that exists between each note within the symphony that is a human life. But no, this was something more. As I used my heart to settle in deeper to what this sensation might be, I realized that I was experiencing a narrowing of the ley lines or magnetic flux in the time-space continuum. I can't think of any other words to describe it. Like the grains of sand in the hourglass, I was feeling the pull of the vortex that will eventually take each one of us out of the upper globe and into time past. I was feeling the speeding up of events, the accelerated global chaos born of frantic desperation emanating from the anti-singularity. We're experiencing that more than we were experiencing it 7 years ago.
Yes.
And in that moment, I heard one of my spirit guides whisper into my ear with unusual solemnity, "Hold on to the reins. It has already started."
Mm.
And this is the moment of the singularity, a new world, a state of interconnectedness where the true happiness of one demands the happiness of all, where the ebb and flow of life is experienced as never-ending waves of love and bliss, that same clay in the hands of the potter that set creation into motion. Not as a conjecture, a philosophy, a system, a creed, a belief, a faith, some therapeutic healing balm to treat the wounded soul that feels it can't stand one more day in an unspeakably corrupt world. Not as something to be thought about, but something to be lived. This is the state of knowingness that transcends all teachings, all spiritual practices, and the perverting influences of eons of propagandistic fog that filled the vacuum that was created when we forgot who we were, where we came from, and the intense love and affection from whence we were conceived. The return home is not automatic. It will require some effort, and we have so little time left to get it right. But it is more than possible. In fact, we should feel that it is inevitable. Having fallen off the ship of divine love and hopelessly, frantically struggled in the cold ocean water below for countless lives, we are finally being thrown a lifeline. All we have to do is grab it and hold on for dear life. How tragic it would be if we missed the opportunity to grab that line before our ship sails off into the horizon, never to be seen again. This is the thing. You can't even begin to understand the definition of the word regret. When those who've signed on to this, what we're seeing happen now, signed on to it for some spoils for their 30 coins of silver. You know what I'm talking about. In the session on May 2nd, I asked the divine to let me experience on the level of the heart in a more intimate way what life would feel like on the new earth. This strikes directly at your question, JJ. I needed to experience emotionally what it felt like to be there. It was the last in a series of pleadings to tether myself to an existence I was allowed to channel, but which my ever-nagging intellect told me was too good to be true. In an instant, I was transported to the most spectacular garden I have ever seen. And I'm a gardener. I have an affinity for be surrounded by things that are growing. I'm a gardener, I'm a botanist, herbalist. I have this unbelievable love for well-kept gardens. It's just has such a powerful effect on me.
Yes.
In an instant, I was transported to the most spectacular garden I've ever seen on this planet or any of the other worlds I have been privileged to visit. And if you knew what you were able to do, it altered states, the other planets you're able to teleport to. I could write a book about that just by itself. I saw strange structures, geometric shapes, and symbols that strangely appeared to have been created to make the plants happier. The experience of communication between people, animals, and plants with everything in one's environs was experienced as the passage of thought within a unified whole. It's almost, the words almost don't just to the actual experience. I immediately noticed that in something so ordinary as the movement of a hand, arm, the turning of my head to look at something, the shift of my eyes from one charming plant to another, all beckoning me to give them attention. There was the experience of life as waves, soft, gentle, loving waves, as if wading through warm, shallow water and experience even the tiniest change and current, but infinitely less dense.
Hmm.
I could do nothing without feeling my interconnectedness with everything and everyone else around me. Every moment was magical, and every experience inspired awe. The joyfulness was incredibly intense. Even in the simple act of breathing in and out, there was this rhythmic ebb and flow of love that produced a thrilling sensation I found almost indescribable. The experience of having an unhappy moment seemed completely foreign to the very place itself. There was a beauty to my surroundings between the gardens, the animal paddocks, flowing brooks, bird feeders, simple thatched roof dwellings that words cannot describe. There was a richness to life everywhere and in every moment that told me that there could be no other place in time and space that made me feel more at home. In fact, that was it. This was home. This was where I was meant to live. This was where I was meant to be. This was what I had been searching for through millions of lives. Only now I was experiencing the ultimate resolution to a search for which there could be no greater outcome. It was as if I had spent millions of years trying to open a door with an unending series of keys that failed to budge the lock. And now, finally, I was given the key that would spring the lock and allow me to open the door. Naysayers may say that this is all a pipe dream. I'm sure that there are those who feel that such experiences are only possible with the use of hallucinogenics, not appreciating the irony that for those of us with extensive experience in the interdimensional realms, it is the return to this earth in its current condition that is the ultimate bad trip. But even without so many entheogenic journeys, I can still feel what life can be, could be, and should be. I can feel the ultimate conclusion to my purpose, a proper conclusion for which there is no other substitute, for which no substitute will do. So too must you feel the conclusion to your journey and accept no inferior substitute. The gospel of 2012 is your call to channel all of your angst, disgust, loneliness, dismay, and bewilderment into the fashioning of the life divine. Life as you know it was meant to be lived. Life as you know you were meant to live it. You and everyone else who hears the siren call of the divine at this special time are the strange attractors of chaos theory. You are that perfectly timed flutter of the butterfly's wing that has the power to completely reorder creation. As we proceed together toward the passage and you intensify your personal search, you will find that you are not alone. You will find that there are opportunities to network with other awakened hearts that can feel the same call. Synchronicities will guide you when you least expect them.
That's very hopeful.
Then you will find an image of the new earth is emerging, not because it was sitting there waiting for you to find it. Rather, it came into existence with the love and grace of a creator, the long-lost lover you never knew about, who has waited billions of years to get you back. And together you created it.
So we create the new earth.
That's the best I can give.
We create the new earth.
It's a co-created
Excellent.
entity.
Very inspiring. Very inspiring. Pretty amazing. You know, as you're reading that, it sounded very, very similar to a near-death experiencer's story of their death. And by the way, there are tens of thousands of these near-death experiences that are recorded and tested. It sounds really, really familiar. So, like I said, an Hayahuasca vision quest is the preferred way to contact the other dimensions. It's more preferred than dying and then returning from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have these types of herbal drugs. That's their purpose, to help us awaken, to help us. It's got our backs. That was wonderful, Greg. That was wonderful.
That's the best rendering I can be of my experience. And again, words don't do it justice, but it's the best rendering I can give of what it was like to experience it. Unbelievable.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
There's nothing, there's no sensations in this world that come even close to the moment to moment perfection you experience in that place.
Yes, that's amazing. And from what you experienced and the knowledge you gleaned from that experience, taking your ayahuasca vision quest, you have so much more knowledge where you question the authorities, the popes, the police, the presidents, the teachers, the government bureaucrats, all of those authorities you would be compelled to question because you now have far, far more real knowledge from experience. And I think that is a major reason as to why the Western cultures, such as the United States, such as Canada, really hate these types of herbal drugs to be used by the population. Because what would happen? What would happen if we stop listening to our authorities, our bosses, our police, our popes, our priests, our presidents, our politicians? What would happen?
The only reason that we have this here, same thing you have this, can't think of the name of it now, the major Hayahuasca religion in Brazil. The only reason we have this and is so prominent in South America isn't just because the plants grow here, it's because it's so ingrained into the culture.
Yes, it's a tradition.
That there would be such an uproar. Professor Joseph A. Tanger, when he wrote the book, The Collapse of Complex Societies, wrote that government's number one responsibility is to try to enforce legitimacy. Yes. We're in charge. Yes. There's a good reason for it. You can trust us, right?
Yes.
The government can only go so far into threatening its legitimacy, which is another reason why the U.S., I think, is going to break up, because right now the U.S. is doing everything possible to destroy even the slightest whiff of legitimacy of its institutions. It's basically kicking the legs out from under its chair. People know, as a result of the shenanigans that are going on, that the government is not redeemable. And I think that's why we've talked earlier about Martin Armstrong's work and some of the other people that have some pretty sophisticated projection tools that just see this going south, and it doesn't stop going south until the whole thing is basically obliterated as we know it.
And the time has come. And astrologers have been echoing the same dang thing for the past for the past 10 to 15 years. Astrology is a real thing. It does have triggers. It does tell us what's coming up. And your book, The Gospel of 2012, astrologers, Martin Armstrong Socrates system, and other systems for forecasting, that's ahead of us. And they all are saying very much the same thing. The timing may be off, but the event is the same. John Titor also. John Titor, the man from the future from 2036. Yeah, he was talking about this in 1998, 1999. So you have the same thing going on. So this is excellent. Thank you for sharing this with our YouTube members, Greg. And YouTube members, please jump on it and grab yourself a copy of The Gospel of 2012, Ayahuasca Vision Quest, so you'll know what's coming up for you and your world. It's got your back. It actually cares about you, and the information can help you. Greg, can you please tell us your website again and where people can get the book, The Gospel of 2012?
Yeah, it's on my bio site. It's actually my bio site. The website is my name, Greg Caton. It's a G-R-E-G, Greg Caton, C-A-T-O-N, gregcaton.com.
Okay.
And it's got where there's a store there and talks about the books and gives you.
Oh, here it is.
There's a lot of other interviews.
I just so happen to have it handy here. Here you go.
Right, and those are curious about my herbal work. The store itself is herbhealers.com if you're in the U.S. or Canada, and alphaomegalabs.com if you're anywhere else.
Yes, yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Greg Caton from Alpha Omega Labs and from gregcaton.com. We look forward to hearing more from you in future videos. So YouTube members, please stay tuned. We'll be back with more great stuff that will help you and your loved ones. Take care. See you later. Bye.